The Galactic Defense Council's war room had seen many species come and go over the millennia. Crystalline Zeltharians, who communicated through harmonic resonance, the triple-hearted Morthak with their redundant organ systems, and even the enigmatic Void Walkers who existed partially outside normal space-time. But never had the ancient chamber fallen into such profound silence as it did when Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Republic asked her simple question. Admiral Kexathul's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of deep confusion among his kind. The towering Braktal shifted his massive frame, causing the reinforced deck plating to groan. Even the normally chattering collective consciousness of the hive mind Zephyrians went completely quiet, their shared thoughts stunned into stillness. "I beg your pardon, Human Chen?" Admiral Kexthul's translator rendered his clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "Could you repeat that?" Captain Chen stood at the central holographic display, her slight frame dwarfed by the assembled alien representatives. She gestured toward the three-dimensional tactical readout showing the massive destroyer-class vessels of various species. "Your cannons," she said, pointing at the Zeltharian battleship's weapon arrays. "They're mounted facing backward, away from the enemy." The silence stretched on for several more heartbeats before Minister Qualthen of the Zeltharian Crystal Hierarchy finally spoke, his voice creating a melodious chime that the translators converted to words. "Facing backward, Captain Chen, perhaps your species has misunderstood our tactical doctrine." "Have we?" Chen's eyebrows rose. She manipulated the holographic controls, highlighting weapon systems across the entire assembled fleet. Braktal dreadnoughts, primary batteries, oriented toward the rear, Morthak cruisers, main guns pointing away from the forward vector. Even the Zephyrian bioships have their plasma conduits facing backward. The room erupted into a cacophony of alien languages as species began conferring among themselves. Translator systems struggled to keep up with the overlapping conversations, until Admiral Kexthul's authoritative bark restored order. "Captain Chen," he began, his tone taking on the patient quality reserved for explaining obvious concepts to children. "Our weapons face backward because retreat is the primary tactical consideration in any engagement. When faced with overwhelming force, the ability to provide covering fire while withdrawing to a safer position is paramount. This is fundamental military doctrine that has been established for over 10,000 galactic standard years." Chen's expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. "So your standard engagement profile is to close to weapons range, fire a salvo, then immediately retreat while continuing to engage?" "Of course," rumbled Commander Thokmar of the Braktal. "Any other approach would be suicidal against a superior enemy. Our armor is thickest at the rear, our weapons optimized for covering retreats. We advance only when certain of victory." "Interesting." Chen manipulated the display again, bringing up the technical specifications for the newest edition. "To the Galactic Fleet, humanity's contribution." The sleek, predatory lines of the UTS Indomitable rotated slowly in the hologram, and several representatives leaned forward to examine it more closely. "Your ship appears different," observed Minister Qualthen. "The weapon configurations are most unusual." Indeed they were. The Indomitable bristled with forward-facing armaments. Massive railgun batteries dominated the forward hull, supported by missile tubes, laser arrays, and weapons systems that most of the assembled aliens couldn't even identify. The ship's design spoke of a single, unmistakable purpose: to close with the enemy and destroy them. The human ship has no rear-facing weapons, noted Zephyrian Collective, their shared voice carrying undertones of confusion. How does it retreat? Chen's smile was small but sharp. It doesn't. The implications of that simple statement sent another wave of murmurs through the assembly. Admiral Kex Thul's mandibles clicked nervously. Captain Chen, surely you don't mean to suggest that human military doctrine doesn't account for tactical withdrawal? Oh, we account for it, Chen replied. We call it retreating toward the enemy. She touched another control, and the hologram shifted to show historical battle footage. The assembled representatives watched in growing amazement as human vessels, outnumbered and outgunned, charged directly into enemy formations. Instead of the expected hit-and-run tactics, the humans pressed their attacks with seemingly reckless abandon. Your species fights like the ancient berserkers of Proxima 7, whispered Commander Thokmar. They were considered insane. Maybe we are, Chen conceded. But here's what we learned in our first Galactic War. While everyone else was positioning for optimal retreat angles, we were positioning for optimal kill shots. While enemy fleets were calculating withdrawal vectors, we were calculating ramming speeds. The footage continued, showing human vessels using their forward momentum not just for weapons delivery, but as weapons themselves. Ships that had exhausted their ammunition continued their attacks by ramming enemy vessels, their crews choosing destruction over retreat. This is... Admiral Kexathul struggled for words. This is completely contrary to established military science. Your casualties must be enormous. They were, Chen admitted quietly. But our enemies learned something important. When you fight humans, there's nowhere to run. Every engagement becomes a fight to the death because we simply don't stop coming. She gestured to the assembled fleet displays. You've all built your militaries around the assumption that your enemies think like you do. That they'll retreat when the odds turn bad, that they'll preserve their forces for another day. But what happens when you face an enemy that considers retreat a four-letter word? The room had gone quiet again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of predators suddenly realizing they might be prey. The Devourers, Chen continued, learned this lesson when they invaded our space. They had your same tactical doctrine: hit hard, retreat, hit again. It worked perfectly against every species they'd encountered. Their backward-facing weapons had carved through a dozen civilizations. She paused, letting the implication sink in. They never retreated from human space, not because they didn't want to, but because we never gave them the chance. Every time they tried to withdraw, they found human ships already between them and their escape route. We don't fight to win battles, we fight to end wars. Minister Qualden's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. And now you're here, offering to fight alongside us against the Void Swarm. That's right, Chen confirmed. But I need you all to understand something. When we engage the Swarm, there won't be any tactical withdrawals. There won't be any fallback. Positions or covering retreats. We're going to point our ships at the enemy and keep firing until one side or the other is completely destroyed. Admiral Kex Thul's four eyes focused on the human captain with new respect and perhaps a touch of fear. And you expect us to adopt these aggressive tactics? Chen's smile returned, wider this time. I expect you to stay out of our way. The hall went quiet once more, but now the silence carried a different weight. For the first time in galactic history, the various species weren't calculating retreat vectors. They were trying to imagine what it would be like to fight beside beings who had never learned how to run away. In the holographic display, the human ship Indomitable continued its slow rotation, its forward-facing guns a promise and a threat. The assembled representatives stared at it with a mixture of awe and terror, finally understanding why the Devourers had spoken of humans in whispered legends before disappearing entirely from the galactic stage. Sometimes, the most terrifying sound in the universe isn't a battle cry or a death scream. Sometimes it's the sound of an engine that only knows how to go forward.